this person says, there we go. So when this person says, the husband's in recovery, I doubt it. I don't think, and I don't know what that means. To me, recovery means you're, every day you're doing something. You're listening to a podcast, you're going to a meeting, you're going to therapy, you're taking an active role in this, you're taking courses. This is not a, well, I go to one group and, I go to therapy. I don't think anyone who, in my mind, was meaningfully in recovery would ever say that to a spouse. I mean, that would be even with our narcissism and lack of empathy, I just don't think that would be the case uh, here. So here's what I think. I think he's still acting out. I think he's still at it. I think he's lying to you. I think that it's my experience is the more he can push you away and say, I don't care. And this is for all the spouses. The more I can blame you, the more I can say, you do this to me and you're not this enough. And no wonder, look how hard this is. And you gained all this weight. The more I can blame you, the less responsibility I have to take for myself. In my mind, and as I listen to this, I think, well, this is someone who's trying to shift blame. They're a blame shifter, and he can continue doing what he's doing, and he's doing something. Now, I don't know, is it a small D or a big D?
For D-Day.
Yeah,
It has a big D day.
usually a big D means that they've been through some kind of treatment, that he is in some kind of has done some kind of disclosure in the process. Um, so I don't believe him, and I don't feel safe, and I sure hope he's not sleeping in your bed. I just don't think. And and I agree with Dr. How could he possibly know? He doesn't know what love is. He doesn't know what intimacy is. He's been lying for 20 years. So, what it comes down to for me is how are you? What are you doing to support yourself? Because you're living with a crazy person and he's making you crazy. And this is what we do. We blame shift, we gaslight, we distract. If you're a mess, how much easier is it for me to point at you as the problem, go do what I want? So I do not hear somebody that I would trust. And most of all, I want to tell you that with all compassion and kindness, I would not believe, I wouldn't believe what he says. I don't think he has any idea how he feels. That's what I'd be concerned about is how is this man I've been with for 20 years completely clueless about how he feels about me? Couples don't spend 20 years together under these circumstances. He is acting out, or he is doing something very significant to keep you pushed away. What I would wonder about, and this is just me to you, is let's say all this is true. Let's say he's working in recovery, he's doing a really good job, and he's decided that you're not the one for him, you're just friends. What do you want to do? What would I do in those circumstances? I would throw his butt out of the house. Say, sorry, I don't want to be friends with you. We're married. I've stuck by you through all of this, and I'm not going to stick by you in these circumstances. You want to be friends? Call me in 5 years after the divorce lawyer. So y'all know I'm very straight and in terms of giving direction. And again, I don't know you, but my concern is for you. I don't give an F what he's doing. I'm concerned that you are being messed with and you're being given one message, which is, oh, I'm really working on this. And then the other message is now that I've really, and how long? 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 years,
A
whatever.
month and a half.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I don't understand it. This cannot be D-Day from disclosure because disclosure is a whole process that we go through. We're both in treatment and we sit down and we work for months on it and we give a complete meaningful disclosure. The addict says, this is everything I've done. So this doesn't happen in 6 weeks. So my guess is that I'm guessing that you have just really begun to find out things. And here's the other piece, and I think a lot of spouses would tell you this: you don't know everything. You don't know a lot of things. And I think for him and what I'm hearing, it's so much easier to say, I don't really care about you than own what he's really doing. I don't think he wants to stop. I think he's blaming you. And as Tammy would say, what are you doing to take care of yourself? This man is not only has he ruined your life with his acting out, but now he's blaming you and and breaking your heart. So there's two things. I would set a boundary for me, and a boundary is taking care of myself. What do you need to take care of yourself? He's not going to change. He is where he is. And I ask all of you, any partners, is someone who is early recovery and they said, oh, I'm working on this. And after 20 years, they turned to you one day and said, gee, I don't really love you. What would you do? Um, I know what I would do. I would say, I'm sorry, I don't believe you here. I'm changing the locks, go stay with a friend. Um, and then I would take care of myself. We have dozens of free support groups on seeking integrity. I think Dr. Skip hosts one. Is that correct?
Thursday night.
There are some. So if you're a woman who's, let's say over, I don't know, 45 or 50, you had your kids, we have a group for women whose kids are grown and gone. We have groups for women who are just walking into this. And the reason I encourage this is because nobody can do this alone. And if you're a spouse and you're being told you're not worthwhile, I don't want to be with you, I, you need other women who are have similar lives to you in similar situations, and you can say, oh my God, that happened to her too. You can also get the support about, maybe you don't feel in a place to take an action. They will stand by you. So the most important thing I can do is really focus on you. There is nothing you can do to change this. And it's heartbreaking. And I would take into account that this is someone who is capable of saying that to you. And what does it mean about your situation that you would be accepting this on a level? So my heart breaks, and all I can tell you, and I think the healthy partners here would say, there is no one that you can help except yourself. Um, a lot of partners say, I don't want to be in those groups. I don't belong in those groups. Those people are having too hard a time. Mine isn't as bad. You look for what's similar and not what's different. Um, I would absolutely make him, do one of the work groups we have. I would be looking to see, and I'll say one other thing. I know I'm going on and on. I would say to him, great, you're in recovery. What does that mean? Well, how many meetings are you going to a week? How many groups do you go to? By the way, I don't know if you know this, but about talking to a therapist. So if Dr. Skip was my therapist, no, if Dr. Skip was seeing my spouse, and he wanted to talk to me about my spouse who he was seeing, he could not. He is legally bound to not be able to talk to me, the spouse, about my partner who he is seeing. However, you can call him and leave a message and say, Dr. Skip, I can't, you know what I just heard? And do you know, because what we do also, and again, I'm sorry to take so long, is we lie. Did you know that? So I'll say, oh, I told my therapist this and my therapist said that, but they didn't, and they didn't. So if it were me, and by the way, he's going to say, oh, there goes my wife interfering again, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's important to me that whoever he's working with hear what you've been told. And at least that is what you can do, is let someone who is working with him know about the crisis and what's been said, and then you got to take care of you. Um, yeah, and that's my strongest suggestion. On seekingintegrity.com, there is a drop down that says resources. They're all free. We are not charging for these. There's a Betrayed Partners work group, and we do charge for that. But I do encourage you to just sit with other women and grieve, because if I were you, I would be in deep shock and grief. Um, Somebody died. Your relationship died. What do you do when someone dies? So my heart breaks for that. Next question.
All right. So a couple of little logistical things. Thank you for reminding me to record. I appreciate that. I finally figured that one out. And Anonymous asked if we can go back to question number one, and we will. But with your blessing,
Sure.
everybody, I'd like to go. Let's move forward to the next one because I did answer that, and then we'll go back to that for the last question.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Dr. Rob, do you see now questions? I've made you a co-host, so
I can see, yes, I can see
Q&A at the bottom
questions.
of your screen.
I can see them.
Okay.
Cool. Okay,
Shall I
let's keep
read it?
going. No.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you read it and I will answer.
Okay.
So what time did the question come in? That will clue me as to
This is
which.
5:03, and
Great.
I'm going to start us off. And
Got it.
thanks everybody for letting Rob and I get our groove on together. All right. Sometimes I feel like explaining to my wife that intimacy in marriage involves more than just sex is as challenging as Galileo trying to convince people that the sun doesn't revolve around the earth. For her, sex seems to be the primary way she manages her emotions. Unfortunately, her emotional regulation often relies on unhealthy habits like binge watching TV, playing online games, and overeating, all while spending most of her time in bed, after work, and on the weekends. From what I've learned about her family background, it appears that she didn't experience much emotional intimacy growing up. Her family culture was emotionally distant.
So I'm going to stop you, Dr. Skip, in this case. Can you take this thing you're looking at and maybe reduce it down to 3 or 4 sentences that really directs the question? And I'll say to all of you, there's always a lot of background. They have trauma, we have trauma, but what I can help with is what are you going to do now and how are you dealing with this? So if you had to distill it, by the way, I can't see the question. So if you could distill this, how would you do that? What would you say? This is a partner, this is an addict, and what is
Mhm.
the problem that they're struggling with?
So the person is asking if intimacy in marriage is more than just sex.
And is this a partner or an addict?
Well, I'm not sure, but it says that
I'm going to say it's a partner. I'm
uh,
going to make that
I
up.
think it's the reverse, Dr. Rob, actually,
Okay, go
because
for it.
they're saying her emotional regulation relies on unhealthy habits like binge watching
Right.
TV. So it sounds like a male partner to me, perhaps, if it's heteronormative. So binge watching TV, playing online games, and overeating while spending her time in bed after work on weekends.
Well, here's my question is, um, there seems to be a lot of focus on his dysfunction and on your partner's dysfunction. I'm sorry, it's him or her, and you're the addict. There's a lot of focus on you, how you're not healthy and you're not doing this. And of course, and I think Hammy would say, what is he doing? Why are we even talking about you? Again, I hear blame shifting, which is, well, you're not this and you're that, and you think this is and you think is that. And I don't even know what your relationship is if he's been acting out. If I don't even know what your relationship is, if you as an addict are not taking care of your recovery. So, what I want to see, if I were asking this question a healthy way, I would say, I've been going to meetings for this period of time. I understand what my recovery is about. I understand how I've hurt my partner, and I'm really focused on me, and I can see that they're in pain. Is there anything that I can do to support them in the pain that they are having? What I hear is, well, she's not this and she's not that and she's doing that. And I'm just thinking, what business is that of yours? And by the way, if you have been acting out or you are found out acting out, what is the partner supposed to do? I got to tell you, I would eat, I would watch TV, I would disappear, I would gain weight. She, if this is her experience of you, if there's betrayal and violation of your trust, I would absolutely expect that she would start acting out in ways just to find a way for safety. So the best thing you can do is focus on your own recovery. You can tell her, I love you. I wish you well. I'm sorry if hurt you so deeply. And I can understand what you're going through. Probably has something to do with what we're dealing with. And all I can tell you is, here's what I'm doing. You can reassure her. And what I say to every addict, if you're really working on this, is put a note on the refrigerator that says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And for the addict, what are you doing Monday? What are you doing Tuesday? So that your partner at any point can turn to that refrigerator and say, oh, it's Monday at 3 o'clock. They must be in therapy. What your partner needs is you to have a consistent, stable recovery that is focused on you and that clearly demonstrates to them that you're doing what you need to do. You want to calm her down? You want her to be regulated? Then you focus on what you need to do. Because if I were her, I would be a mess too. So we don't know enough about what this man is doing for his own recovery, what kind of therapies, and we don't know any of those things. But I will say that I again hear a male spouse who is more focused on what she is doing or her problem. That's what I hear than on his own recovery. So I hear some blame shifting. And by the way, I have dear friends who are alcoholics, and you know what I do when they're in a bad place? I go I go take a walk. I go read a book. I say, is there anything I can do for you? And you seem to be having a hard time. By the way, if you are the person who's violated someone's trust, you are the last person on earth who's going to be able to make them feel better. So any addict who's think, well, my partner's really suffering because of my acting out, and so I'm going to try to make them feel better. Trust me, there is no one. Many people can help them feel better, but it's not you. You're the person who caused the problem. So, Dr. Skip, what concerns me here is there's such a focus. There's someone who's struggling with acting out and recovery, and where is their finger pointing? Do you have any thoughts about it?
Well, I do. If this is a male partner and it's a female
We know what
sex
we
addict,
know.
I
Yeah.
want you all to know that Dr. Rob did invent, if I may, the concept of prodependence. And he does take a pretty radical betrayed partner stance. So he's not being insensitive when he says what he says. That being said, where we went to school, we had a fabulous professor named Dr. Marilyn Volker, and she would talk about different types of intimacy. And she would say
Oh,
that one
right,
of them is sexual, but there
right.
are seven other types of intimacy. There's physical, so physical touch. There's emotional intimacy. There's intellectual intimacy. There's sharing something visual, aesthetic. There's spiritual intimacy. There's experiential. There's financial. Those. So I like this question because, yes, intimacy is much more than sex. And if you grow up where I grew up, in Fort Worth, Texas, we were told that intimacy was the same thing as sex. Intimacy was a kind way of saying sex because we didn't even use that word.
I think that's pretty general. I mean, let's not blame the Texans here because we all have grew up in those kind of families. But he's right, and I really want to reinforce that is that intimacy is the result, the outcome of a meaningful, close relationship. And, intimacy is holding hands. Intimacy is choosing what you want to watch for TV. Intimacy is having a fight and then resolving it. Intimacy is doing something fun, playing a game. We have learned to play games together, my husband and I, after 23 years, holding hands, stroking each other's hair, doing fun things together, massaging. I mean, that's intimacy, having deep and meaningful connection, making yourself vulnerable. So I do think there's a lot of pressure on women by men to we don't really like the warm up part. We just want to go right to the sex, even the healthiest of men. I will say this to the partner, though. I think it's your job to slow them down. I think it's your job to say, um, I love you, but sex is not, I don't feel safe with sex. I don't know who you are. I don't really feel close to you. There's many versions of this question because I'm not entirely clear, but I'll say two other things in general. I do think sometimes when partners find out that they've been cheated on, women in particular, they will be more sexual with the addict, which is counterintuitive, right? You violated me, but I'm having more sex with you. But they have sex maybe for the wrong reasons, which is if you have more sex, you won't have sex with other people. Or if I have more sex with you, then you'll love me more. Or if your needs will be satisfied. Or they feel so open, sometimes partners, that you're finally telling them the truth and you finally know what's true, you feel closer to them. So the only thing I would say to actively engaging and focusing on sex in an early recovery situation is my favorite statement, which I made up, is why would you have sex with someone you don't trust? And if there isn't trust, unless you're, 23 and out there doing so whatever you do, not, just dating or whatever people choose to do in a meaningful long-term relationship. And I will say to you guys also, some of you spouses are watching your addict male be with other people, act out, lie, blame you, and then you sleep in the same bed with them. And I think that's what couches are for. I think those door locks are for. At some point, I have to say, being in the same space with someone who's hurting me so deeply is me not taking care of myself. It is your boundary to set what you decide is safe for you and isn't. So again, we don't have full information about the dynamics of this, but again, for you folks, I'm just spitting stuff out that are generally applicable. And if we get to something that might be more specific, I will jump in.
Great. So the next question we're going to come back to, part two of the anonymous attendee. I promise we will come back to your case, but I want to get to the other ones we haven't gotten to yet. So the next one, Dr. Rob says, we are in the early stages of reconciliation after my sex addict partner agreed to start treatment. He's eager to start up physical intimacy with me, which I'm not opposed to, although I have a bit of anxiety about it. I'm worried that he will be objectifying me and it won't be genuine intimacy, which is what I want. But I do miss the connection with him, which is what you were just talking about, Dr. Rob.
How long has he been working on this or in recovery? Did it say? You
I
said that,
don't
I
see
think.
that.
Um,
Early
well,
stages of
first,
reconciliation
okay.
after treatment.
Right. So I don't know what after treatment means. I know that the men that I work with at Seeking Integrity, we're not talking to them about how are you going to sex when you get home. We're talking to them about how can you stay in recovery, how can you focus on yourself, how can you um, um, get your needs met. Um, I, I guess what I want to say to the spouse most of all is that you got to trust your two things. Trust your gut. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel comfortable, if you feel like having sex isn't going to leave you feeling rewarded and close, don't do it. Don't have sex with someone you don't trust. And to the other question, I want to say this to the spouses. It's not unusual for a spouse to say, well, if I have sex with him, then he's going to get all caught up as an addiction again, and it's going to send him racing out the door. I shouldn't have sex with him because if I do, it's going to set the whole thing off. It's slightly like kind of like being with an alcoholic, and you say, if I had a drink, then they're going to drink. And let me tell you, if I'm a sex addict and I want to act out, I will. And you're having sex with me or not having sex with me is not really relevant to my choices of acting out. That's my choice. Um, you feel objectified, you're being objectified. You feel unsafe, you're being unsafe. And again, I think this goes back to the question of what is sexuality within a relationship. It's a long way from where you guys seem to be right now. The only other thing I would say is, have you told him that you feel objectified? Have you told him you don't feel safe having sex because he's so in recovery and you don't know what's real and what isn't? Um, and again, with both people, and I know Tammy would jump on this, are you in recovery? Are you getting support? Are you going to support groups? Do you have a therapist who's supporting you? You're in pain and you're not sure what to do. So I don't want you to go this alone. And the other side of it too is, boy, I wouldn't be anywhere close. I would absolutely worry about being objectified and used too if I didn't see him going to meetings, going to, we teach courses, joining courses, doing intensives, weekends, certainly going to a lot of meetings. I mean, what is he doing that would leave you feeling safe? Because my telling you, oh, I love you, sweetie, and you're so wonderful, and you really need to trust me now because I'm working on it, is about worth as much as I hear pennies are worth right now. But you can only judge your caring for us by our actions. You never thought we would walk out the door and meet and knowingly do something to hurt you. Well, we did. And so our words are meaningless. The only thing you can trust over and over again is our behavior, and trust your gut. Yeah,
Fantastic. And if I may just piggyback on the end of that,
I
Dr.
hope
Rob,
you do.
there were two things that came up for me, and I appreciate again everybody's patience. Um, Number one is I see you say that you're missing your connection with him, and of course you do. And so
Mm,
therapists like me can tell him, you need to do a 90-day period of abstinence. Well, then it holds your sex life hostage, and it's not fair to you sometimes too. One resource that I would like to throw out there is Masters and Johnson developed something called sensate focus. And there's a couple of psychologists that wrote a book that Dr. Rob wrote the forward to called The Couple's Guide to Intimacy. And it's
mm,
about sexual reintegration therapy. The author's last name is Burkaw, Bercaw. Now, be careful when you read the book because the first three chapters take a codependent stance. And if I've learned one thing from Dr. Rob, we don't do that anymore. So they're rewriting the book, the first three chapters for that. But this talks about like, how do we come back together sexually when there's been betrayal before? And it doesn't start with sensate focus. It doesn't start with taking your clothes off and hopping in the sack. It starts with emotional exercises of, we've been together 20 years, but who are you? And let me tell you my life story. And if we get to touch, maybe it's hands or feet, if that's safe, or clothes on, or that sort of thing. And then it gives you instructions on how to reconnect sexually. So that's my 2 cents for that.
okay.
All right. The next question is, I've been doing a lot of research and on sex addiction, and there is no clinical diagnosis for sex addiction. Why are
Hmm.
we not just calling it out for what it is, sexual
Which
narcissism?
is, well, a couple of things. So every addict, alcoholic, drug addict, is narcissistic by nature. Narcissism means I come first. What I want is what matters. I'm the most important person in the room. I don't care what your choices are. It's a lot of eyes. And so every addict, by definition, when they're acting out, is narcissistic. Addiction is a narcissistic act. I'm going to do what I want. I don't care about you. That doesn't mean that we will carry through with that level of narcissism in recovery. And I often tell the story of the guy who was gambling and he spent his kid's college fund when he was out there gambling, but sober, he worked three jobs to pay that fund back. So just because someone is acting out doesn't mean that in somewhere in there is not an intact moral system that shows caring and empathy. It takes us a little work to get there, but that doesn't mean that it isn't there. Um, I hear what you're saying about sex addiction, and trust me, I have been in this field as an active person for 30 years. I was in Newsweek commenting on the Clintons, 1998. I've been doing this for a while, and I can tell you that um, sex addiction. I was going to say something about that. That um, we have had no diagnosis in the United States to date. We use a book for diagnoses called the DSM, which is all of our mental health diagnoses, and it has like what is depression? They have this, and this, and if they have four of those, they're depressed. They have three. It's very clear. However, we are the only country in the world that uses that particular manual. There is a manual called the ICD, the International Coding of Diagnosis. Can you know that? Can you
Disease,
say that?
diseases.
Right. So thank you. So in every other nation than the United States, there is a diagnosis for what we call compulsive sexual behavior disorder. And if you're a fan of AI, which I am, or you simply want to go to Google and say compulsive sexual behavior disorder, identified, give me a diagnosis, it will list every one of them. What I hear listening to you is you're angry and you don't want this person making excuses, and you think they're just making their excuses for being a jerk, and I'll say that in a nice way. um, uh, there When you look at the definition for compulsive sexual behavior disorder, it doesn't speak to someone's attitude or how they act. It speaks to their behavior. And Dr. Skip, I don't know if you can do this. Do you have, I can do this. Let's put a link, you can do this, a link into the chat of the CSBD diagnosis. I think you can just pull it up on Google,
Uh,
and we'll put it in the chat. And I think all of you actually would really benefit from simply reading the medical diagnosis for compulsive sexual behavior disorder. And I'll say this, having been in the media and doing this work for such a long time, I've been in 30 years, right? So the first 15, 18 years, what I got when someone acted out was, oh, they're just making excuses and sex addiction doesn't really exist. And that's just what they call themselves when they're cheating and it's an excuse and all of that stuff. What I hear from the media now is, wow, they must really be struggling, what they're doing to their family, and I can't imagine. And so I do think there is much more cultural recognition than there was before. Alcoholics used to be bad bums who were in the street who didn't care about it. Well, now we know they have a disorder. Um, so I think more research would be useful. There is no question in my mind after all these years that sex addiction is a thing. I will say to you, though, I don't go to a 12-step meeting and say, hi, I'm Rob and I have a compulsive sexual behavior disorder. People go to meetings and they say, hi, I'm a sex addict. In our diagnostic manuals, drug addiction is called substance use disorder. Well, I don't go to a Cocaine Anonymous meeting and say, hi, I have a substance use disorder. I say I have a cocaine addiction. So you're right. Sex addiction, you won't find anywhere because it is a colloquial term. It doesn't have meaning in terms of a formal diagnosis. But when you look at CSBD, you will see the criteria, you'll see what it's about, you'll see what it does to families and people's lives. And CSBD, compulsive sexual behavior disorder, is a very formal way of saying sex addiction. Um, by the way, I understand that this sounds like an excuse. And I will say one more thing. I run a treatment center. I see men. We only work with men, and they're all coming in, and they're going to treatment for destroying usually their spouse's life, and and they'll come in and they'll say something like, well, let me how to say this. The culture will say, oh, they're just going to treatment to shut their spouse up. They're just going to treatment so they can say there's something wrong with them, so they can escape their consequences. I can tell you, I don't care why someone comes to treatment with me. I don't care whether they come in to save their butt because they're going to be in the papers, they're going to lose their job or their marriage. What I care about is what happens to them in treatment. Once they get in that door, then I have the opportunity to help them. So I'd be less worried about the diagnosis and less worried about the meaning of it than I would what is this person doing to leave you feeling safe and supported. And yeah, narcissistic for sure. You can't ruin other people's lives that you say you care about without being narcissistic. Um, Dr. Skip?
I
We have
think that
lots of
some,
questions. So,
you're right. I think that some people go to another level, a radical level of even calling this intimate partner abuse, integrity abuse disorder, deceptive sexuality, that sort of thing. But I think that let's move on to the next question, if that's okay with you.
yeah, I'm seeing, I think I would like to answer, but I can't. So, yeah, let's do new questions.
Okay, let's see. Um, my partner and I discovered he had a sex addiction this past December. It
Okay.
was a relief to finally have somewhere to look for answers. We made the mistake of oversharing the first 2 months, discovered he shouldn't be using me as his accountability partner, and now he has swung the completely opposite direction. He feels if he shares anything with me, I'm being his, well, it says he feels if shares anything with me, I'm being his accountability partner. I would love some references, insight on what is healthy to be sharing with each other.
Well, for one thing, I do encourage you to go to some of the spouses groups because, again, you are going to hear what is healthy, what isn't. We do have a betrayed partners work group. I don't know when the next one is meeting. Tammy would know. But if you go on the Seeking Integrity website, it sounds like more knowledge is needed for you and more information. I'm glad that you realized that this was not healthy. And I do think for you partners, just to say it, you ask questions and you say to us addicts, well, if I just have the answer to this, I'm going to feel better because you think you will. But then you get the answer and you have another question because hearing the answers and knowing what we do is not going to calm you down. It's going to escalate you. What will calm you down is seeing that we're doing things that we need to do and getting the support that you need. I absolutely agree that I do not want to turn my spouse into my parole officer. It's not healthy for you because you become mom, you become, the person up there that I'm saying mea culpa to. That's not your job. And it's also, by the way, not your job to be understanding and listen and be supportive. How can you be telling you, well, I went to a sex club today and I'm really bad about it. And I just wanted to let you know. Well, what the heck are you and he's coming to you seeking compassion and nurturing. What are you going to do with that? I will say about what we do need to share, and those of us who are going to meetings, who are in therapy, and I know the spouses are uncomfortable with this, but I'm telling you the truth. If I have crossed a line into acting out, I have gone to the porn. I have called that person and have plans. I am on the way to, or have been with a sex worker. I'm back with my affair partner. In other words, if I cross that bottom line of what my sobriety is, then I have to go tell you. I have an absolute responsibility to say, I want you to know. In fact, I need to tell you because lying by omission is still lying. And if you want intimacy, you don't walk around with lies. All the spouses want is to know what is going on. What is going on in my life? Could someone please tell me? So I understand the absolute need for to know every single thing, and I'm speaking from your end now. So here's the deal. If I'm looking at someone and I find them attractive and I get distracted, if I drive through the wrong part of town, I think, oh, this isn't a good idea. I better call my sponsor. If I'm on the computer and I think, oh, I could probably get to some porn if I did that and I don't do it, it's not my job to tell you because we would never ever build relationship intimacy if I said, oh, I was looking at someone at the restaurant. By the way, it's something a lot of people do. So the challenges that are presented us, the objectification, the looking, the distractions, the thoughts of doing something, I can't tell you that. I know you want to know, but it turns you into my parole officer. It will anger. You'll never feel calm and never feel safe if I tell you every single thing I looked at. It is absolutely our responsibility to tell you if we crossed a bottom line. And if we are struggling, it is absolutely our job to go to that sponsor, to go to that meeting, to go to that therapist. We do need to tell the absolute truth. You may not be the person who we're going to say everything to. So I'm really glad you brought this up. This is a boundaries issue. And really, boundaries are about what's safe for me. It is not safe for him to use you as the person he reports to for recovery. What are you going to do with that? I love you and I care about you. I hope it gets better. I want to hear you, but I hate you and you're ruining my life. It's impossible for you. His boundary has to be, I'm going to take this to other people. And your boundary has to be, I would love to hear about this, but find someone else to tell it to. Um, and if it really gets to the bottom, where there's something is crossed that is completely unacceptable, you do absolutely need to know about it. Yeah, Dr. Skip, I know we have so many questions, and I want to say, what do you think, and how are you feeling? But if you don't mind, I'm going to just try to buzz through a few more.
And I put some
Um,
things in the chat about my opinion
oh,
on that, so that's
oh,
totally fine.
please say, then I will back out. What did you want to say?
Well, no, I just said that check-ins, structured check-ins are good. AEIOU, Thanos. I would say even it's okay for you to see the three-circle plan if the sponsor and therapist have reviewed it and you've had formal disclosure. If you haven't had formal disclosure yet, we don't want discoveries then. I would say it's okay to talk about topics of meetings, but not who was there or what was said. General topics in therapy. You can even meet the therapist if the therapist and he are willing for you to do that. And don't be the reporting person on his Covenant eyes or software.
And I want to agree with Dr. Skip. There's a place and a time. Someone mentioned discovery before. We have something called disclosure. And this is why you do want to see a certified sex addiction therapist. We are trained in how to work with a person who's being acting out to tell you the truth at some point. You need to know everything, and you need to be there to hear it so you understand what you've been living with and whether you want to continue to live with it at all. But to come out in drips and drabs is a nightmare. There's nothing worse. And you spouses, I get it. You just want to know, okay, what's happened? And I've got foundation now. I hate it, but at least I know where I am. And then you find out something more, and it all flies out from under you. And there, well, and this is a constant, this is a nightmare for the spouse because they never really know what the bottom is. So there is a process for us to do that as addicts. It is a therapeutic situation. And I think to drip, drip, drip information on you is to leave you without being able to have much of a night's sleep. And yes, please join the Seeking Integrity support groups. It is, by the way, seekingintegrity.com. And let me tell you, I am not trying to sell you anything. If you want to go to a work group, go to a work group. If you want a consultation, I do them. If you want to go to our residential center, all that information is there. But one of our commitments is to have support groups that are free, that you can go to, and some therapists will moderate it and make sure you are in the room with a whole bunch of other people who are. And by the way, we sometimes in a support group for spouses have 100 people. By the way, you don't have to show your face. You don't have to give your name. And the best thing I tell to a spouse is listen. Just listen. It's so important. I know for a woman to say, he told me I'm attractive, and he told me I was overweight, and he told me I was stupid. And she looks across the room and she sees a woman who's just like her, who's saying the same thing. And she said, well, wait a minute. If that happened to her, then it isn't just about how I'm not this and I'm not that. Um, you can't be angry at someone who's coming to you and saying, I'm so sorry I did this and I didn't mean to. It puts you in an impossible situation. We got time for maybe another one, or Tammy would say, since we were late, we could do two.
Right. I just, it's up to you, Dr. Rob, with
Yeah,
our
well, let's
time.
get through one more and see where we are.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's see. Um, I am just going to go to, okay, how do I deal with the pain of knowing that my partner invited me to events with the affair partner?
Right.
Why did they do that? 2 years saying it was EA, just found out 3 weeks ago it was sexual the entire time. Devastated.
Well, why do we do it? Because we can get away with it, because we think, well, if the two of them get along and they like each other, I can kind of, who would do what I'm doing. So we do it for we do it because we don't care in that moment how it's going to affect you. We want to do what we want to do. And I have had lots of guys who, does my wife know everyone the women who's my secretary? Absolutely. Has she been having sex with me for 5 years? Absolutely. I think in some ways I can say, well, I can get you to say, well, he would never introduce me to that person if there was something going on. What I what I think about it is it's one of the most violating things I can think about, because you have been, whatever it means, trusting or engaged or curious about this person. Maybe you've had a meal with the person you're having an affair with, and then your sense of safety is completely violated. You've been violated more than once. Not only is he having an affair, not only has sex with someone he works with, which, by the way, you can lose everything about. I can't tell you how many guys I work with, and if you're listening, sex addicts, well, we worked together a couple of years, and yeah, we started having sex, and I'm thinking, well, then you could lose your house, you can lose your reputation. We are still living in a Me Too world. And if you're having sex with somebody that you work with, especially if you're already in a relationship, especially if they have any accountability, and I'm talking about a physician who works with a bunch of nurses, they all work under you. So, um, one of the things I say to guys who are in treatment who are in this situation is, make sure you get a lawyer, because if you're in sexual with someone you work with, they're eventually going to sell somebody, and then everybody else tells somebody, and then they say, me too. And then before you know it, um, all I can tell you is that my heart breaks for you. And I think this goes beyond sex addiction. This is cruel. This is cruel. He is rubbing your nose in this, and I'm probably on some level feeling good about the fact that he got away with it. So I don't know how you can. I don't know the best way you can take care of yourself in this situation. I can say one thing though. I would not, I hope this person doesn't. I hope that this isn't someone he's still seeing. And I don't mean for sex. If he works for them, if they are friends of friends, I mean, I would say if he's still seeing that person, you don't have a chance in hell to feel safe with him at all. I want to put it out, Tammy, those you don't know her. It's TAMI, just say this, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. I'm Rob at seekingintegrity.com. Send us notes, send us letters, send us information. We'll always have a resource for you. I answer everything I can, or I make sure you get what you need. We will support you with finding the right therapist, because as some people know, and excuse my language, many therapists, in my opinion, are batshit crazy. So you really want to, no offense, Dr. Speer. So you really have to make sure, you may go to a therapist who says, well, what's wrong with him having a lot of sex? And what's the big deal? Or why don't you have more sex with him? You are going to get blamed or dismissed or not heard unless you're working with somebody who really knows what they're doing. And I mentioned Tammy because she knows pretty much everybody in the field who's worth knowing. And if she doesn't know the information, I'm glad to help. Don't be afraid to reach out. You know what? I've given people my email address. No one calls, no one writes, and and I can't meet with you, but I can certainly direct you in the right way. I do have a podcast. I don't make any money for it, but I can tell you at 175 podcasts, every single couple I've worked with and every single partner has said, I'm incredibly grateful to have learned more about this. And I sit there with experts in intimacy and sexuality and addiction, and we talk about what it's all about. And that is called Sex, Love, and Addiction. Sex, Love, and Addiction. I think we have 2 million downloads, which is just crazy. Um, lots of free support, lots of free support. My view on it is if 100 of you get the free support and 5 of you go to treatment with us, then we've paid for all of the free stuff. So can we do one request, Dr. Skip? If
We
people
can,
can't
and if
stay,
I
they
can
can't stay.
piggyback really quickly, and again, I don't work for Dr. Rob. I volunteer from time to time, but he really is a social worker at heart, and he's created this online platform that I put the link in for these groups where people like me, I've been leading my group for 6 years, almost every Thursday night, because I also want to give back, but I respect Rob so much for what he does, giving back to the community. Um, that being said, Dr. Rob, let's
One
do
more.
Okay. So what we're going to do is go back to the first question because they asked if you would answer this.
Okay.
Um, Betrayed partner asks, do you think it's okay or could allow for true sex addiction recovery if my addict's middle circle to current allow for 8 hours total of electronic time, games, TV, YouTube, etc.? He has a co-occurring pretty severe tech addiction. He tried to stop completely for a few weeks, and for every and was very depressed. But at the same time, he has not been able to show up or make much progress in sex addiction recovery, which I believe
Right.
partly due to tech addiction. He's resistant to decreasing.
Well, a couple of things. This is where I will say I do consultations with couples. I do them for 2 hours. I will sit with you and I will gently explain to him, that's my sarcasm, one of the challenges with this. And I'll tell you, you're right. First of all, I don't trust whatever he's doing on that screen because it only takes 10 or 15 minutes of looking at that. And then I unless you're sitting there the whole time or this kind of filter on the computer, I wouldn't do that. Plus, I think you're being uh, gaslit, meaning you're being told something. You know what? He doesn't want to leave the tech because he doesn't want to leave the tech. He is enjoying, I can say that I have to watch TV all the time. I can't help but watch the TV on, and this isn't just this show or this show. But the moment I get home, I'm so addicted to it. Well, guess what? You could unplug the TV. So if he is dedicated to healing himself and you and the two of you, he makes a choice. And this, by the way, is gaslighting, which is, oh, I'm really trying so hard, but this thing is really driving me crazy. And do something about it. If this is such a problem, do something about it. And porn is a form of tech addiction, if you will. So I agree with you. I just don't agree with the conclusions. Uh, he doesn't get a pass on this. If he's able to work and eat and chew gum, then he can turn off the freaking computer. So, and I think this is a bunch of BS. And I think it's meant to have, look over here and don't look over here. And so basically, I think he's lying and doing whatever the F he wants to do and trying to get you to feel bad for him. Um, Dr. Skip, you're nodding your head.
I am. And what I had said is if this person went inpatient to your treatment center, and I likened it to chemsex addiction, we would have them get off of meth or marijuana or alcohol while they were in treatment with you in addition to sex.
Well,
You
there's
know,
no tech, there's no computers, there's no one. We sit, you get to talk to your partner once a week, and that's about it.
right.
Um, and yeah, is it a form of dissociation, of disappearing into something and escaping your life? Absolutely. But healing from addiction means I'm going to stop running. And you can't say, well, I'm not going to gamble. I'm just going to run to food, or I'm going to have to stop with the sex and I'm just going to drink. Addiction's like whack-a-mole. Once you push one down, the other one's going to come up. And it is about escaping feelings. It is about disappearing. It is about not needing or wanting anything because I'm focused on this. And I don't care what he is obsessed with or doing. He can't recover and heal while he is making excuses for why he's not available for intimacy. By the way, how many hours a day is he in recovery? He's spending 8 hours a day. Who has 8 hours a day? Do any of you have 8 hours a day, or 6 hours a day, or 4 hours? And if I had that time, I'd be in meetings, I'd be in support groups, I'd be talking to therapists, I'd be working on my relationship. I wonder if he could do things. Here's my sarcasm again. I just wonder if there's anything he could do with that important time he's on the computer that might actually lead to healing your relationship. Um, yeah. God, Dr. Skip, I would love to do this all night. We have 41 people. Can we just ask one more question? I know, or
It's
can we? Can we?
well,
Okay.
we can 100%.
I
And
have to
now
walk the dog, but
it's basically clarification that came through.
okay.
And so
Well, I'd
um,
rather move on to the next question because, every story is different. So,
there is not another new question. Everything
okay.
are second points, from what
Okay.
you answered.
Well, I will say this to you, all, especially to spouses, please take care of yourselves. You can point at us all day. I run a treatment center, right? And I'll just say this briefly. Every spouse is asked to write a letter to you're Mary, the wife, and you're writing to Jack, who's in treatment, your husband. And you are asked to say, this is what I've been going through. This is what it's been like living with him, whatever that is. And Jack will be in treatment and he will say, oh my God, I've heard all that before from her, because he has, and he's dismissed it. But the guy in group next to him it's not his wife. And he's going to say, oh my God, I did all of those things too. And so what I'm saying to you is they're probably not going to listen to you, and they're going to dismiss you, and they're going to avoid you, and they're going to blame you. Um, the answer to that is I step away and take care of myself. Yeah. Tammy at seekingintegrity.com, TAMI, sex and relationship healing. And, anything I can do, all you need to look up is Dr. Rob Weiss, and you'll and sex, and you will find me. So thank you, Dr. Skip, and my apologies to all you guys for the tech issues. We obviously can't live without Tammy. That's very clear. But I will say this, Tammy has taken the first holiday in as long as I can remember, and God bless her. Um, Boy, does she deserve that.
And
So.
she did call back while you and I were in session. You were
Of
already
course
in.
she did. Of course she did. All right. Talk to you guys. Be well.
Thanks,
Come find
everybody.
us. We're
Best
not
wishes.
hard to find.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Dr. Skip.
Thanks, Dr. Rob.